So Ravi, Tasty Bite has got a global presence. It's one of the top Indian food consumer brands, and it has been for a few years. Did you have a background in consumer foods before Tasty Bite? And maybe you could also speak a little bit about the journey of Tasty Bite in its early days.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, my entire career has been food and agri. So, I began with the National Dairy Development Board initially, and then soon transitioned to companies like Britannia and Pepsi. So, one learned a lot about brands over there and worked with large process-driven, companies. Also learned a lot about corporate culture. Learned a lot about how consumers behave and how do you garner consumer insights that are really deep. And working for these companies, which at that time hired, I think, amongst the best talent in the country. So I was very fortunate to be part of the consumer boom at that time. But I think somewhere down deep within me, and I guess it happens now to entrepreneurs every time that they think they must begin to make a change, is questions would gnaw at me. Then I would think to myself about what next am I going to be doing at Pepsi. So maybe you'll head a new geography, or you get a larger market to take care of, and then one day you'll land up in the corporate headquarters in the United States. But will you do something more than selling what we used to call brown sugar water? At the end of the day, that's what Pepsi is. And it didn't gladden my heart, to think that we were pumping in so much sugar into people's lives. And one began to question, therefore, the whole basis of working in these large corporations, because you as an individual, you don't have the ability to change their course. You can work towards excellence of some kind in terms of small areas of change. Okay, so you can say, let me make this food better. But if it's bad food for people, it's a conundrum. As in, it's something that is not great. So while that was those are kind of questions that are bothering me. Friends of mine in the US, who'd moved from New Delhi to the US, and we'd be in touch often. Were going through similar times. And but there they saw in the on retail shelves something was happening in the US, and that organic and natural was becoming a big thing that people spoke of.
What year was this?
I'm talking of 1996, many years ago. So at that time, we began to wrap our heads around a idea which said that, look, one, nobody knows how Indian and Asian food sells. Indian and Asian is the hottest selling food in restaurants, but there's nothing available in the shelves. And so, if you define yourself as a company that has specialty food, because we thought of Chinese and Italian as having gone mainstream. It wasn't. There's nothing called American food, so they absorb everything. Okay, so Chinese is now as American as it can be. Italian very much, but Indian, Thai, these are yet these are yet cuisines that people go flock to restaurants for. So we said, look at specialty, look at health and wellness, as one part, and the other big trend was convenience. Okay, we'd never seen convenience from that form, but America had at least the research that India did not have. So you could read about how people were now taking 12 minutes to get a meal together at home, as against 60 minutes that they took about a decade ago. And that was a big movement. And so we said, look, why don't we bring these three things together and create an offering that is ready for the US market? And we were thinking small. We just said, look, we're all salaried professionals, nobody had, and it was not the era of venture money, angel investments, all that was not there. And you were forced to think small in those days. So it was about finding a manufacturer here in India or in other parts of Asia, put together a portfolio and actually become a marketing company. So we went and set up a marketing company in the US called Preferred Brands, and we were headquartered in Stanford. about an hour north of New York. And so we put together a bunch of a collection of products. So we had papadam, which was being manufactured in Dubai. We were doing a range of Indian ready-to-eat foods, sterilized foods that we got a manufacturer here in India, which was Tasty Bite, which was a BIFR Sikh company. They were just too happy to work with us. And then we had this company called Lemthong Industries in Thailand. We put all that together and we got the permission to use the brand Tasty Bite across all three products, even though they were not all manufactured at that time by them. So we began the journey by just becoming a marketing company. We buy from them, sell there. And we struck at that time what I call gold with having Trader Joe, enlist us. And Trader Joe and Whole Foods were just the two chains that were raising the flag across America for natural and healthy. So if you got into Trader Joe, it was like a really big thing. In almost a year's time, revenues were like $1 million for us. And it meant like $500,000 in gross margins. So we were like saying, this is, you couldn't have got a better break than this. So it's really a business that is funded, in our opinions, by our customers. And that's how Tasty Bite really, went. All our steps thereafter is really built from there. Then, in a very strange set of circumstances, and not forethought by us, the company in India got sold. The company Tasty Bite here got sold to Unilever as part of a larger transaction, M&A transaction that was happening when Unilever acquired the brand Quality for ice cream. So it became Quality Walls, if you remember, in 1996. Everything became Quality Walls. But part of the entire deal was Tasty Bite going along with ice cream to Unilever. Now that put a big question mark on our business. Because Unilever was not going to run Tasty Bite. Okay, they wanted to run the ice cream business. So why would they want a sick, loss-making enterprise, which also had a revenue top line of only some 2 or 3 crores at that time, maybe bleeding much more than that in their portfolio. And so we would think for days together, saying, "Ab kya karenge? What will you do now?" And I don't know from where, it's hard for me to put a finger about which one of us actually made the proposition first. We said, look, why don't we go and meet with Unilever and find out what they are thinking to do with the brand? And so we came back, went to Bangalore, and we met with R. Gopalakrishnan, RG as everybody would call him in those days. And RG, of course, went on to become this very celebrated director at Tata Sons. He was, of course, very, very celebrated at Unilever too. But we found in him a person who's, who was so good, such a clean conscience. And he heard our story about how we had, latched on to Tasty Bite to go and build what he said was a made in India brand in the largest discerning market in the world, which is, America. And he was like really proud of us. He said, look, you guys have done what the biggest corporations in India don't do. They think they manufacture in India, sell in India, sell to Indians. You guys have thought differently. So so we were talking not on two sides of the table. Okay, we were talking as if now we had become one in trying to find a solution for Tasty Bite, the brand, not necessarily for an investment that Unilever had. So we made a proposal to him to say that, look, why don't we buy the company of you, because it's a loss-making company. Little realizing that we don't really understand, what goes into M&A. And he took a laugh, and by that time, of course, lots of other Unilever people had got involved. We had, people like John Pinto. We had M.K. Sharma went on to become vice chairman of Levers, getting involved in the entire discussion. But their advice was go find the money, because you do the net balance sheet. It wasn't as what it looked to us. It did require a significant amount of money to be raised, and we didn't have any money to pay. Even though despite the gross margins, there wasn't like cash in the bank to pay them. But I think you get lucky you get fortunate, in times of you go and search for something, I guess you get it. So CDC at that time, which is Commonwealth Development Corporation, which went on to become Actis later on, joined us in creating a special purpose vehicle. So we created Preferred Brand Foods India Private Limited with a 50-50 JV with CDC. So they invested the money into this holding company, which then was pumped, given to Unilever, and the company got transferred to us. We didn't realize what it takes. We took in those days 18 months to get all the permissions, from the government of India, because this became an overseas investment, because we were going to be investing from the US firm now in India. And we learned everything along the way. You stumbled, you found out something, you overcame the difficulties. And it was only in March 99, period of for 15 months, that the share actually got transferred in our name. So the funny part, Darshan, is that I could not technically become an employee of Tasty Bite, even though I was running Tasty Bite myself. So I was running it literally on a power of attorney from Unilever. I didn't have the power to sign checks. I didn't have for a very long time a designation, except that everybody knew that I had come in as the person who ran the business. So it's only on the 1st of April 1999 that we officially became owners of the majority of the company.
Wow.
We then, of course, things moved on. Gradual growth happened, and by early 2000s, I think we got entrenched in America enough to have Spins, which was a branch of Nielsen, tracking food companies. And Spins began to show data about Tasty Bite. We said, अभी हम arrive हो गए.